Are you comfortable? Good. Settle in. Close your eyes. And let me tell you a little secret about my neighborhood. I've always believed that food remembers who made it. Not in any mystical way, just in the quiet, slow accumulation of small choices. A longer simmer on the stove, a pinch of salt added without measuring. The kind of close, careful attention you just can't write down on a recipe card. That's exactly why my chili always had a bit of a reputation. Every fall at the neighborhood block party, people would line up, paper bowls in hand, with that familiar, hopeful look in their eyes. I never made a fuss about it. I just showed up early, set my heavy cast iron pot on the folding table, and let the warmth speak for itself. But then there's Lena, my sister-in-law. Lena believed in a very different kind of recipe. She believed in presentation, in timing, in making absolutely sure people saw her lifting the lid, serving that very first spoonful, and laughing, just a little bit louder than necessary. Over the years between you and me, she developed a habit. She'd casually mention to the neighbours that she had helped me with the chili. Then, gradually, it became our recipe. And eventually, just hers. I let it go on much longer than I should have. I really did. So when she called me exactly 2 weeks before the party, her voice so sweet, so deliberate, I already knew what was coming. "I was thinking," she said, "this year, I could make your chili. You deserve a break. And honestly, I'd love to learn your recipe properly." There was a pause on the line, soft, but expecting me to say no. I smiled, a quiet, private smile she couldn't see. "That sounds nice," I said into the phone. "I'll send it to you." I wrote out the recipe for her that very evening. Every single step, every exact measurement, carefully laid out. I even added a few notes in the margins, little tricks I'd learned over the years. And then I left one thing out. Just a small detail. So easy to overlook, but essential. A teaspoon of unsweetened cocoa powder. It's not enough to taste on its own. No chocolate flavour at all. Just enough to deepen everything else. It grounds the spices. It makes the warmth linger on your tongue. Without it, the chili isn't bad. It's just flat, like a story that never quite finds its ending. When I hit send, I felt so calm, so perfectly, peacefully calm. The day of the block party arrived. Clear skies, the gentle hum of folding tables clacking open, the soft scrape of lawn chairs on the pavement. Lena was already there, of course, her shiny new pot sitting front and centre. She waved when she saw me, just a little too brightly. "I followed your recipe exactly," she called out. "Well, now it's ours, right?" "Of course," I replied. I'd bought my own pot too. I set it quietly at the far, shadowy end of the table, the lid still tightly on, keeping the warmth tucked inside. People gathered, just like they always did. The first few bowls were scooped from Lena's pot. I watched from a distance, not anxious, just gently curious. The reactions came slowly. A polite nod, a slight tilt of the head, someone reaching quietly for the salt shaker, someone else looking for the hot sauce. "It's good," one neighbour murmured, hesitating just enough for it to hang in the air. "But, I don't know, it's missing something." Another chimed in a little louder. "Yeah, it just doesn't taste like your usual chili, Lena." "Maybe your tastes have changed," Lena deflected. But the whispers kept coming. Not mean, just honest. The kind of soft, undeniable truth that lingers. After a while, Mrs. Patel wandered down the table and spotted my old, heavy pot. "Did you bring some too?" she asked. I just nodded and slowly lifted the lid. The aroma spilled out immediately. Rich, dark, familiar and warm, wrapping around the cool evening air. A few people drifted over, then a few more. Within minutes, there was a quiet, sleepy little line forming, the kind I remembered. Someone took a bite. I watched them close their eyes. "There it is," they said. "That's the one." I didn't look at Lena right away. There was no need to rush. When I finally did glance over, she was standing very still, her performative smile completely gone. Later, as the sun dipped below the trees, painting the sky in deep, sleepy purples and blues, people began to pack up their chairs. Lena walked over to me. The space between us felt quiet. Her voice was much softer now, stripped of the performance. "Can you send me the recipe again?" she asked. I looked at her, not unkindly, just peacefully. "Sure," I said, "but it only really works if you make it your own." She nodded, slowly, understanding. I walked home in the twilight, carrying my heavy, empty pot. The evening breeze felt cool and gentle against my face. There was no grand triumph, no gloating, just a quiet, heavy settling. Because food remembers who made it, and, eventually, so do people. Are you still awake? It's okay if you are. There's no rush. Just keep your eyes closed. Let your breathing slow down. And stay right here with me. Since we're just sitting here in the dark, it actually reminds me of another little secret. Something that happened not too long ago. I used to think it was a coincidence. The first time, it actually felt almost flattering. My brother, Daniel, and his girlfriend, Marissa, just happened to book the exact same coastal inn where my partner, Elise, and I were celebrating our anniversary. We laughed it off. We shared a dinner. We adjusted our plans. The second time, it felt less like chance and much more like a pattern. By the third time, there was absolutely no doubt. They had a way of finding out. Through casual questions, overheard conversations, or maybe just Daniel's old habit of prying. Just gently enough that you wouldn't notice until it was too late. And Marissa, with her bright, loud enthusiasm and her endless need to fill the silence, she would always insist we all spend time together. What was meant to be quiet mornings and slow, lazy evenings turned into loud group brunches, long debates about activities, a constant, exhausting sense of being accompanied. Elise never complained outright. She's too kind for that. She would just grow quieter, her smiles getting a little bit thinner. I felt it too. After that third trip, sitting in the car on the long drive home, Elise reached across the console and took my hand. "Next year," she whispered, "maybe we don't tell anyone where we're going." I nodded, but I had a slightly different idea. A few weeks later, during a noisy family dinner, I mentioned, loudly, casually, that Elise and I were planning something really special for our next anniversary. "A wellness retreat," I said, pouring myself a glass of water. "Up in the mountains, very exclusive. Digital detox, mindfulness, all that." Marissa's eyes lit up immediately. "That sounds amazing," she said. "Where?" I just shrugged, as if it were nothing. "Still deciding between a couple of places. There's this one lodge I've been looking at, very secluded, hard to get into." Daniel leaned forward across the table. "You should send it to me. We've been wanting to do something like that." "Sure," I said smoothly, "if we end up booking it." I let the conversation drift after that. No exact details, just enough of a crumb. A few days later, my phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "Hey, just booked that lodge you mentioned. Figured we'd surprise you there." I stared at the screen for a moment, then slid the phone over to Elise. She read it. She looked up at me, a slow, disbelieving understanding forming in her eyes. "You didn't," she said. "I did," I replied. Because the lodge I had mentioned did exist. It was, in fact, very real. And very intense. 5 a.m. wake-ups, mandatory ice baths, guided wilderness treks in the freezing cold. No phones, no coffee, no alcohol. Meals sourced purely from whatever the participants helped forage from the dirt. A place designed quite deliberately to strip away all comfort. I had booked it once, briefly, out of morbid curiosity, then cancelled within the hour. Instead, I made a different reservation. A small beach resort, quiet and unremarkable to anyone who wasn't looking for it. Warm air, soft acoustic music, long, lazy afternoons with absolutely nothing planned. We told no one. The week of our anniversary arrived, and with it, a message from Daniel. "Just got here. It's intense. Marissa's not thrilled. Where are you guys?" I waited a good long while before responding. "Change of plans," I typed back. "Decided to go somewhere a bit more relaxing." There was a very long pause, and then his reply. "We have to wake up at 5 tomorrow for an ice bath." I could almost hear the betrayal in his text. I didn't respond. Instead, I set my phone down, face down on the table, and looked out at the ocean. Elise was sitting beside me, her feet tucked under her, a cold drink resting in her hand. The afternoon light was soft, the kind of golden light that makes everything feel slower, more forgiving. She glanced at me, a small, knowing smile playing at the corner of her lips. "Do you feel bad?" she asked. I considered it, truly. "Not really," I whispered. She nodded, as if that made perfect sense. We sat there in the silence for a long time, the sound of the waves steady, heavy, and unhurried. No interruptions, no unexpected dinner plans. Just the quiet we had been trying to find all along. Somewhere, far, far away, my brother was probably stepping into freezing water at dawn. And for the first time in a long while, our time felt entirely our own. It was a simple thing, really, but it was enough. Take a slow, deep breath in and let it all the way out. You don't need to listen too closely anymore. Just let my voice wash over you. Let their heavy feelings sink into your shoulders. But while we're resting here, let me tell you about something else I noticed. My sister has always believed that what's mine is temporarily hers. It was never said out loud. It lived in the small, quiet moments. An empty hanger where a dress had been. A faint trace of unfamiliar perfume in my closet. A button that didn't quite match the others when something was finally returned. By the time I noticed, the borrowing had already happened. The event had passed. And whatever I might have said felt too late to matter. At first, I told myself it wasn't worth making into a problem. We were adults. We shared a house for a while to save money, and I tried to see it as a kind of closeness. But there's a difference between sharing and being quietly overridden. My sister, Alina, moved through life with a kind of easy confidence. She had a calendar full of dinners, galas, and things that required just the right dress. I, on the other hand, preferred simpler plans. Maybe that's why she felt justified. Maybe she thought I wouldn't miss what I wasn't using. But I did. Especially the pieces I chose carefully, the ones I saved for, the ones that felt like small extensions of myself. The pattern became so predictable. A new dress would arrive, something I'd been thinking about for weeks. I'd hang it at the back of my closet, still in its protective cover. And then, a few days later, it would be gone. No message, no note, just absence. So, when I found the silk dress, I paused longer than usual. It was understated, but unmistakably elegant. The kind of piece that didn't need embellishment to stand out. I knew immediately Alina would notice it. She had a gala coming up, one she'd been talking about for weeks, and I could already imagine the way her eyes would linger when she saw it hanging in my room. I bought it anyway, but this time, I didn't hang it up right away. Instead, I took it to a tailor I trusted. A small shop tucked between two busier storefronts, the kind of place where details mattered. I explained what I wanted carefully. Not anything visible, nothing dramatic, just a precise adjustment. The seams brought in, shaped exactly to my measurements. No extra give, no flexibility. The tailor nodded, understanding without asking too many questions. When I brought the dress home, I placed it in my closet like I always did. No announcement, no change in routine. Alina saw it that evening. "Oh," she said, her voice light but interested. "That's new?" "It is," I replied. She stepped a little closer, her fingers brushing the soft fabric. "It's perfect for the gala." I smiled slightly. I suppose it would be. That was all. A few days later, I packed a small suitcase. I had planned a quiet weekend away. Nothing elaborate, just a chance to step out of the usual rhythm. I left early that afternoon, knowing the gala was that same evening. As I zipped my suitcase, I placed the silk dress carefully inside. When I returned 2 days later, the house was quiet. Alina was in her room, the door slightly open. I could hear movement, a kind of restless shifting. Then her voice, low but edged with frustration. "Why won't this?" There was a pause, the sound of a zipper being pulled again, more forcefully this time. "It doesn't fit," she muttered almost to herself. I stood in the hallway for a moment, not listening so much as recognizing that the pattern had finally met its limit. A few minutes later, she emerged, dressed in something older. Still nice, still appropriate, but not the dress she had wanted. She glanced at me briefly, as if trying to read something in my expression. "You took it with you?" she asked. I nodded. I wasn't sure when I'd need it. She held my gaze for a second longer, then looked away. "Right," she said. There was no argument, no accusation, just a quiet recalibration. In the weeks that followed, my closet remained undisturbed. Hangers stayed exactly where I left them. Dresses returned to being exactly where they belonged. And I found, unexpectedly, that I didn't feel triumphant, just settled. Some boundaries don't need to be spoken loudly, they just need to hold. And once they do, things become still again.
Family is funny that way, isn't it?
We draw these little invisible lines in the sand, and we just wait to see who steps over them. You're doing so well, by the way. Just keep breathing, nice and slow. You don't have to carry any of your own boundaries right now. The day is over. You can just rest. But since we are already on the subject of family, and the things we quietly claim as our own, let me tell you about my aunt. Just one last little secret for the night, before you drift off completely. Every family has its quiet patterns. Ours just happened to unfold under wrapping paper. For as long as I could remember, my Aunt Lorraine had a very specific talent. A talent for receiving gifts with great theatrical enthusiasm, and then redistributing them with even greater confidence. It wasn't subtle. A lovely silk scarf I gave her one Christmas appeared, neatly rewrapped in my cousin Nina's hands the very next year. A set of expensive hand-poured candles made their way directly from my shopping bag to my uncle's, still in the exact same box I had chosen so carefully. What made it difficult wasn't the regifting itself. People do that. It's fine. It was the performance. Lorraine would present each recycled item with such a flourish, describing how she had thought of you immediately, or how she had searched everywhere for something so absolutely perfect. And she would do it right in front of me, meeting my eyes only briefly, as if we shared some private joke that I had never agreed to. The first few times, I let it go. It just felt easier to smile, to quietly sip my tea, to pretend not to notice the familiar, tired folds in the wrapping paper, or the small, identifying details I knew all too well. But over time, it began to feel less like thrift, and more like erasure. So, when her birthday approached that spring, I decided, gently, quietly, that I would give her something she couldn't so easily pass along. I chose a leather tote bag, soft, structured, the kind of buttery leather that ages so well. It was, by any standard, a beautiful bag, something I knew she would admire, and maybe even keep. But I added one small detail. Inside the lining, along the inner panel where it wouldn't be visible at a quick glance, I had a phrase embroidered in bright, unmistakable neon thread. Not large enough to be seen from across the room, but absolutely impossible to miss once the bag was opened. It was a nickname, a highly specific nickname Lorraine had for herself. One she used often with a kind of playful pride, but only in very familiar, private company. Something she would never, ever have chosen to share publicly. And certainly not something she'd want stitched permanently into a gift. When I handed her the bag on her birthday, she reacted exactly as expected. "Oh, it's lovely," she cooed, running her hand over the smooth leather. "You always have such good taste." I smiled. "I thought you'd like it." She didn't open it fully right then, just a quick glance inside, a polite nod. It was enough. Months passed. Summer softened into crisp, cool fall, and with it came Thanksgiving, the first real family gathering since her birthday. I actually noticed the tote on her arm when she arrived, which surprised me. Perhaps she had decided to keep it after all. But old habits tend to return. After dinner, as the family gathered in the cozy living room, Lorraine reached for a gift bag she had brought. She called my cousin Nina over, with that same familiar, bright tone. "I saw this and thought of you immediately," she said, handing it over. The room settled into that gentle, expectant quiet, the kind that comes with small, informal gift-giving. Nina smiled warmly, thanked her, and pulled out the leather tote. "It's beautiful," she said, echoing the exact same words Lorraine had used months before. And then she opened it. There was a pause, not terribly long, just enough to shift the air slightly in the room. Nina tilted the bag, her brow softening in quiet confusion. "What's this?" She turned it, just enough for those nearby to see the inner lining. The bright neon thread caught the warm living room light, vivid and absolutely unmistakable. The nickname sat there, bright and specific, leaving very little room for interpretation. Lorraine laughed, but it came just a fraction too late. "Oh, that must have been a custom detail," she stammered, her voice light but desperately searching for footing. "You know how these things are." Nina looked at her, then at me, then back again. Not accusing, just deeply curious. I said nothing. I simply lifted my cup of tea and let the moment pass. There was no confrontation, no raised voices, just a very quiet, heavy understanding settling perfectly into place. Lorraine didn't offer many explanations after that. The bag remained with Nina, though I noticed it wasn't used much. And in the years that followed, Lorraine's gifts became noticeably simpler, less specific, less performative. As for me, I found it much easier to give without expectation again. Some lessons don't need to be spoken aloud. They just need to be seen. Once. Clearly. And after that, things tend to find their own balance. That felt like enough. Let that quiet balance settle over you now. Take a deep, slow breath. Close your eyes and sleep well.